Welcome to the Better Business, Better Life show. I'm your podcast host, Debra Chantry-Taylor. In this podcast, I interview business owners, EOS implementers, and business experts who share with you their experiences, tips, and tools to help you create not only a better business, but also a better life. At the end of each show, you will have 3 tips or tools that our guests share that you can implement immediately into your life. If you want more information or want to get in contact, you can visit my website, debra.coach. That's DEBRA.coach. Please enjoy the show. And today I am joined by none other than the Sir Mark Savant the Great. At least that's how he told me I should introduce him. But seriously, I am here with Mark Savant, who is actually a podcast expert. He is also the host of After Hours Entrepreneur, which is actually one of the top 1% of podcasts around the world, which is pretty spectacular. So welcome to the show, Mark.
What's up? What's up? Glad to be here, Deborah.
It's good to have you here. We've been having a wee chat beforehand, so we've got to know each other. So I'm looking forward to some of the stories we're going to explore. I know that you're obviously a podcast expert, but you're actually also a business owner. You employ a team of people. You help other people to build their businesses. Tell us a bit about how you got to be to where you are today, because you started in insurance, isn't that right?
Yeah. I mean, I have the history of being an employee. So the transition from employee to employer was about a 5-year journey. But I think it all started with just feeling that I was meant for something greater. Like, isn't life more than just waking up at 7 o'clock, going to work, coming home, paying the bills? Like, did you ever feel like you're meant for something greater than that? Because I did.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
I did. I mean, how many people just settle, just put on their shoes and just settle and think that they just can't get out of that track that they're on? It's really, I think, a sad thing. And I kind of recognized that and I decided, I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to change my life. And I started looking at all sorts of different businesses. I started looking at potentially opening up my own insurance agency. I looked at opening up laundromats, vending machines. I looked at opening up a mattress warehouse. I looked at all sorts of things. I just was so hungry to find something. I was even writing and illustrating children's books. I remember spending hours and hours and hours in a dark, dank room, just drawing images. And then one day I was like, I can't do this every day. What am I doing? I got to get out there. I got to meet people. I got to talk to people. And eventually I had this epiphany when I was running. I was like, I'm listening to podcasts every day and I'm learning so much. Why don't I start a podcast? And that was really the moment where my life changed.
How long ago was that? Because, I mean, podcasts have obviously been around for a long, long time, but they've only become popular, like I say popular in kind of scare quotes in more recent times. So how long ago did you start your podcast?
My first podcast I launched about 5 years ago, 4.5 years ago. It was called The Awesome Dad Show. But it's funny, I really wanted to talk about fatherhood because I think that fatherhood is a really vital part to the world, to the upbringing of our new children. The studies are pretty clear that single, kids that grow up without fathers in their lives have the deck stacked against them. And I said, we need to empower dads to get involved and to be excited about what they're doing. Like, I hated that idea of being Al Bundy or Homer Simpson, that doofusy dad. I thought that was a really bad way to look at fatherhood. And so I said, well, why don't I combine being active and dad together? The name of the podcast will be Act-A-Dad. And I was so proud of myself. I put this great logo together. It was so cool. It was really cool. I still have the shirts for Act-A-Dad. I remember going live and then going on YouTube and being like, all right, let's go listen to the show. Let's go listen to the Act-A-Dad podcast. And I typed it in. And I was like, I can't find, all that's coming up is Spanish shows. Like, what is this? There's all this Spanish stuff on YouTube. And I was like, oh, it thought I was misspelling the Spanish word actividad. So it was auto-correcting me. I'm like, nobody's ever going to be able to find this podcast because I try to get too clever with the title. And so I had to scrap about 50 shirts that were all logoed. I had to redo the website. I had to redo everything. And I changed the name to The Awesome Dad Show, which you can still find today and will actually pull up when you type it into YouTube.
Excellent. So do you still record that?
I don't. As a business owner, as a podcaster, as a father, as a husband, we only have so many, you can only focus your attention on so many things in order to get the most impact. I really think it's important. I'm reading this book, Necessary Endings, in a men's group at church, by Dr. Henry Cloud. And what the book really emphasizes is getting clear on your vision and where you want to go, and then pruning the stuff that's maybe not optimizing your time, right? So there might be stuff that you're doing that's either valuable but not optimal, or it's just infected, you got to cut it out, or it's just completely dead and you're carrying that dead weight. And so I felt like the Awesome Dad Show was a nice rosebud to my beautiful rose plant, but it wasn't optimal. And so I felt that my time is most optimized by focusing on the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast, which now has almost 400 episodes. I think we're nearing 1 million downloads. So it's been a real blessing.
Nice, wonderful. And so the switch, I mean, that's quite a big switch from active dad to after hours entrepreneur. So what prompted that?
Right. So when I started the Act Dad podcast, the Awesome Dad Show, my goal was, even if no one listens to this for a year, I'm just going to put out an episode once a week. I'm going to give it a try, because there's definitely a lot of validity and repetition and consistency. That's a real thing. And I really fell in love with it. I was getting some listeners, not a ton of listeners, but I was getting some listeners, but I was speaking to NFL athletes and Super Bowl champions and political candidates, local mayor. I was like, this is pretty cool. I'm getting connected to people I would normally not have access to. So I kept going with it. And then about 8 to 10 months in, people started saying, hey, Mark, can you help me start my own podcast? Can you help me with a podcast? Can you help me with media? And so I said, sure, this sounds like a good idea. So I decided to shift my focus to a new show that was more entrepreneurial oriented, because at the end of the day, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to leave my day job that I hated, and I wanted to make money. I hated my day job. I got 2 kids. I got a wife. I got to make money. And so yeah, I remember this very vividly. The show was ready. I had interviewed probably a dozen people for the show, right? And I was like, I just need the name. You might remember the Actadad Mayhem. So I just need a name for this show. What is it going to be? Debra, for months, at least 3 months, I was pacing around my room. I was jogging. I was running. We didn't have ChatGPT back then, which would have helped save me a lot of time. I was like, I just cannot come up with a name. And I remember I was on a road trip with my wife, and I was just workshopping some ideas on a notepad while she was driving, which is great, by the way, to have a partner who can drive while you work. And I remember I was just explaining to her the theme of the show. And, it's for the person that just wants to leave their day job and they're using their after hours time as an entrepreneur. They're an after hours entrepreneur. I was like, that's it. That's the show. And then obviously you quickly go to Google and you do all your research. Does anyone have that name? Is the domain free? And to my delight, it was open, it was free, and the show was born.
No, that's fantastic. I remember a similar thing when I started my Better Business, Better Life podcast, probably 2.5 years ago now. And I did all that searching, but what I actually didn't realize was that Better Business, Better Life, some people spell it or do it with a comma, and some people don't. And so later on, I found out there was another New Zealand-based company that has exactly the same podcast title. It's like, no, how did I miss that? But somehow, because of the way I'd put it into Google, wherever it might be, I missed it. So I have the domain and I have the podcast, but there is another person out there. So I actually got the guy who runs that podcast to come onto my podcast, and he wore his Better Business, Better Life t-shirt onto the podcast. So it's so cool.
Small world.
I know, small. Well, and I suppose limited ideas. Nothing is completely new. I love it. After Hours Entrepreneur, I actually bought a domain name many years ago called Before You Quit Your Day Job, because I'm very passionate about people absolutely doing what they love, but making sure they're prepared before they actually go into it. Because I think we all have these dreams about, we get told you go out into business to get more freedom. You're going to have all this time. You're going to be able to do whatever you want, whenever you want to. You're going to make masses of money. You're going to work from the beach on a laptop and everything's going to be really great. I don't know, my experience is it hasn't quite been as simple as that. So I wanted people to be really well informed before they actually do that.
Well, it's like it's like you want the 6-pack. I want to have a 6-pack. I want to have a 6-pack so I can just sit out and just relax all day with my 6-pack on the beach. But what you need to get the 6-pack is, I need to diet and I need to work out hard all the time. And it's kind of the same thing with entrepreneurship. I think you could certainly do things smarter. It doesn't need to be hard, but it can be it can be simple. But you're right. What I found in the pursuit of taking control of my life and owning my own business was I need to institute habits in my life. I need to cut out the bad habits, like cut out, the TV's out. I'm reading more often. I'm spending time with the right people. I delete all the video games from my computer, but I'll tell you what, I wake up every day and I'm like, I am so glad. I feel so blessed to have the life that I have. And I definitely want it for more people because quite frankly, I think that owning your own business is probably the best way of generating wealth, period.
Yep.
I don't think there's a better way.
Yeah, absolutely agree. My passion. My passion is about this. If you can create a better business, then you can create that better life. And that's what I really want for people is that they actually don't get caught in the trap of going into business and creating a job where all you're really doing is just doing the work you would do for somebody else for yourself and not have that freedom to do the things that you really are passionate about. So tell me a little bit about the journey to where you are now. So great to hear that you're doing well. Wonderful that you've got a team of people that you're working with. What was that journey like from deciding to do the After Hours Entrepreneur podcast, helping others out on their journey, and then what? Like, how did it form?
Well, I wish I could say it was a smooth ride. It was not. I was working my insurance job during the day, and then I was building out this podcast agency by night. I was recording and prospecting. By the way, I had no media experience. I didn't know how to develop funnels or I didn't know anything except that I was enjoying the process and I was kind of attracting some people. Eventually I found a lane. I'm going to help people launch and automate their podcast. I grew out a team. I now have 6 people with several that I work with for specific jobs. We're producing 10 different shows right now with a few more. I just had a sale today. So welcome, Jeff. It's going to be great. You have no idea what you're in for, Jeff. It's going to be amazing. And I feel really blessed to have the infrastructure, but it's not easy. It to me anyway, building my own business required massive growth in myself. And I just think that that's a necessary part. We were talking about this a little bit beforehand. There's this song by, I believe it's Mary J. Blige, which says, I wouldn't change my life. My life's just fine. And I was listening the other day. I was like, MJB, you got it all wrong. Your life is not fine. You can always be better. You can always strive for more. And that's the way that I approach it.
That's actually really interesting. So I know that I always talk about there's 3 things we kind of need in life. We need a coach, the personal kind of development type work. We need an operating system, which is what I do for my day job. And then we need a peer group that I think you can actually tap into. Now, it doesn't have to be a physical peer group, but even just listening to podcasts of people who are going through a similar journey gives you that kind of peer feedback. What did you do around personal development? How did you help yourself to grow? Because we can't do it without help, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Certainly a big part of it was being conscious about the content I consume, listening to the right podcast, cutting out junk TV, starting to read more. I've never really enjoyed reading, but now I read a good amount, probably 20 to 30 minutes a day at least. All that's been big. Joining different mastermind groups to meet new people, and that's been big as well. So all the above, it's one of the things I think that is funny, especially in this field of media creation, is being able to look back on what you did a year ago and be like, wow, I was terrible. I was so bad. I was just processing a bunch of old videos because I'm clearing out my cloud drive, another problem, an IT problem that you have to sort out because you're a business owner and you sort out all your problems. And I was looking at these old videos. And I'm like, I could just delete all these because they are terrible. They're terrible. And to me, that's a good thing to recognize the gap, how much better I am at storytelling now than I was, how much better the quality is. I've got a DSLR camera. I've got 2 nice lights. I've got soundboards up. And, just that, I think that for me, just the pursuit of being just a little bit better than yesterday carries tremendous momentum. And, the other thing, again, reading this book, I'm going to bring it up again because I'm in the middle of it. Necessary Endings has this point in the book that I think that you really hit on well, Debra, which is the importance of your inner circle, the importance of the people you spend your time around. There's the point in this book that you only have room in your life for about 140 relationships. And that was kind of like an aha moment for me. I'm like, the people that are in my life matter a lot. If I only have room for 140 people, I want to be surrounding myself with people that are going to help me get to my vision. I see my vision. I know where I want to go. I want to be with people that are going to help me get there. And you almost have to, I think, audit your inner circle, or say, if you don't have an inner circle, how do I surround myself with the right people? I agree with you, Debra. I think that that's probably one of the most important factors in self-development, is getting yourself in rooms and around people that are smarter than you, that have done more than you, that can help build you up and lift you up faster.
Completely agree. I think it's the Dunbar's number. I've done some work around this, and it's like you've got 5 people who are really, really close, 15 that are kind of on you spend the most amount of time with, and 150, or the magic number is for this, but that's the limit of what you can actually do. And it's like you said, I think in the beginning, it's kind of like deciding, if you've only got that finite amount of people, then who do you decide to keep? So a bit like deciding that junk TV isn't going to further me. So these people are not going to help me on my journey. They're not going to support me. And being really, really clear about who you spend that time with. It's a fascinating exercise to actually go through and kind of go, right, so who are the 5, who are the 15? And it doesn't have to be, we automatically assume that our family needs to be part of that because they're our family. But sometimes you actually have to look at them and go, quite honestly, are these the people that I really want to spend time with on a regular basis? Or are they in the biggest circle of 150 that I'll spend some time with, but they're not maybe the ones I spend the most time with?
I think that's a really valid point, Debra. Sometimes the family are the people that you need to put those boundaries up, because maybe they don't believe in you, or they're toxic. They put you down. I'm blessed that I don't deal with that personally, but yes, that
I've seen it
manifest 100%. So, and it doesn't mean you don't love them, but you say, hey, Mom, I love you, but I got to go. It's difficult. On this idea, though, about you only have a certain amount of people that you can connect with, I think about this a lot, because as an influencer, my vision is to have the best state-of-the-art podcast studio, downtown Fort Lauderdale, minutes from the airport, minutes from the beach, A-list celebrities, entrepreneurs, actors, sports athletes, politicians. They're all like, I'm going to be in Fort Lauderdale. I got to get to the After Hours Entrepreneur Studio. I have to talk to their agent. Agent, you got to get me in the studio with Mark. I'm going to be in town for a conference. I need to be there. I have this vision, right? I have this vision. And part of accomplishing that is amassing a loyal group of followers, right? You need to have fans. You need to have an audience. You have to have people who feel like they're invested in your journey. And so one of the strategies that's interesting to me is, how can I make them feel more like they're a part of this journey with me? And this might sound like heresy, and it's counterintuitive, but I want to bring this up because I've been thinking about it. I think that AI has the possibility of making people feel more connected to you. I was speaking to an AI app developer. I cover a lot of AI on my Mark Savant YouTube channel. And I was speaking to an app developer the other day, and he's developing this app that allows you to basically program a chat bot to sound exactly like you, to speak like you, to use your vernacular. If you're a podcaster, you can already train it off of all the hours of podcasting that you've done. And you can train this bot so that it's a way for you to answer and interact with your fans in a more scalable model. I know it sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it?
And then creepy. It's like, oh no. And also the concern, I've always said, I'm quite happy there's only one of me out there, because I don't think the world could cope with more of one of me. Imagine having lots of these versions of me. But I hear you. It does give you an opportunity. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. Yeah.
It's a little weird. I don't know how I feel about it either, but I'm like, at the end of the day, if you're waking up in the morning, because there's plenty of influencers that do this, like Gary Vaynerchuk, he has a text thread, and all it does is it texts you like once a day saying, you're awesome, go get it, or believe in yourself, right? So I kind of see it as an evolution of that, but it can be more personalized. I mean, here's the other thing. The amount of data that you're able to get from a single email is astonishing. I was speaking to another AI app developer who's developing this calendar app, which is really, really cool. The way that it works is, hey, you want a book to be on my calendar, fill out this link. And what it does is it takes your email, it cross-references it with all the data on the internet, and it does all the research for you. So it's like, for example, Debra, as soon as you logged into the call with me, it would say, from New Zealand, owns a podcast, leads a mastermind group, has a cat that likes to hang out in the back of it. It'll tell me, I'll know all this stuff about you, and I never even met you. All from your email.
Yeah.
Isn't that shocking?
Yeah, actually, I think Zoom's kind of already doing a wee bit of that. I saw a new app that has been introduced to Zoom and I didn't realize, I just clicked, oh yeah, I'll take it. And it actually sends out, when it sends out the invite, it gives you a whole lot of information. There's a dog in the background now as well. And there's a whole lot of information that it gives you about the person in terms of what it's picked up from just going out there and seeing what else they know about this person. And I suppose, if there is things like videos out there, of course, the internet can pick up the fact that there's a dog and a cat walking around the back of a video, can tell you that. So there is such a wealth of information. It's it should make life easier. It should make us more connected. I just worry that we also thought that the smartphone was going to actually make life easier and give us more freedom. And now I see people completely obsessed with them. To be fair, so am I in some respects. I'm not, sort of being holier than thou in any way, shape or form. I'm just saying that I've seen a lot of people who just, the reliance on their phone has become huge. And yeah, it'll be interesting.
I think that you could definitely debate that. I think you could definitely make a strong case that that connectivity, specifically, I think with social media, is doing massive damage to young people's brains. I think you could certainly make the case, not just young people, but millennials, Gen Xers also, but young people, I think.
Can I share something with you? I was speaking to this really amazing, as we said, we meet amazing people in our lives. I met this amazing lady yesterday, ex-military, now runs these edge retreats and things, and has done a lot of work around the brain psychology and the physiology of the brain, how things work. And they did some research where they actually videoed adults my age, so we're talking 50 plus, right, who are actually on their computer and they have their phone next to them, and they would actually record how many times whilst they were working on whatever they were doing on their computer, how many times they'd actually touched their phone. And it was something ridiculous, like 50 to 70 times in the hour. And when they went back to the person and said, hey, Mark, we've just finished videoing you and you just touched your phone 50 to 70 times, you'd be like, no, I know, it was only 2 or 3 times, I'm sure. And then they play the video, and they weren't even consciously aware of the fact that they were actually reaching over and touching that phone, looking for whatever, the alert or the announcement or whatever it is. And it's like, wow, this stuff has become so inbuilt. I don't know, I love technology, so I'm like all for it, but I just wonder how we as humans make sure that we really choose to get rid of the bad parts and keep the good parts and make the best use of it.
It's a big experiment that we're living through right now. At the same time, though, I focus on what I can control. And, from an entrepreneurial perspective, from a business perspective, I want to take that piece of information, Debra, that you just gave me, that the average person checks their phone once a minute, let's say. How do I leverage that to generate more income? How do I leverage that to get more sales? How do I leverage that to get more people into my pipeline so that I can engage with them? And again, I think that everybody kind of understands that. But what I think is the next thing, because I'm always interested in what's next, I think what AI does to kind of bring this full circle is if I can leverage AI in the data that you're giving to all these platforms. Every time you go onto a website or to Facebook, whatever, you're giving them basically all of your data. If I can leverage that data and also leverage AI to incorporate my own personality and my own vernacular and the way that I speak, I could combine them together. Well, then I can start to create customized messages at scale via whichever platform I like, whether that's email, which I think, which by the way, if you're not leveraging, to everyone out there, if you're not leveraging email, nurturing relationships, it's shocking how powerful email is. I'm just going to put it out there. I underestimate for years. I don't know if you felt like I felt kind of like icky to send out emails like, oh, I don't want to bother people.
Yes. Yeah.
But people click.
Yep.
People click and they buy. And once you start getting your formulas down and your numbers down, it's like, whoa, this is actually something. This is, I think it's actually negligent not to be sending out emails and building out your email campaigns, but I'm getting way off topic here.
I was speaking to an email expert who had exactly the same thing, and I think maybe what happens, this is my theory on it, is that there are a select few who kind of ruin it for everybody, and so LinkedIn is a classic example. It's like there's those people who just connect with you and immediately kind of just throw shit at you and want you to buy things, and you kind of go, ooh, you haven't even asked me how I am or asked me what I do or anything, and so because of that, I always felt like I never wanted to message anybody on LinkedIn because I didn't want them to think I was one of those horrible people that was going to just throw stuff at them and expect them. And then I realized, no, good people don't do that. And also there are some good ways of doing it in a more automated way, but without losing the human element that needs to come with it, because you don't just, you don't walk up to a complete stranger in the street and go, hi, I'm Debra Chantry-Taylor. I'm a professional EOS implementer. I work with businesses, blah, 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 blah. Here's five of my clients, so you should have a look at their websites. You just wouldn't do that. And yet we suddenly think it's okay to do it on LinkedIn. So
click here for a call.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So I think you're right. I mean, email is massively underutilized, and I think people are looking for connections, and they're looking for their tribe, and they're looking for the people that they can be involved in. So if we can use technology to make a bigger impact, that's awesome.
Yeah. And, by the way, I totally agree. The LinkedIn DMing that people do is a cesspool. Like if you're sending a link within your first message, you're failing. But I am empathetic to the pitches because I understand that a certain percentage of them work, and the person is just trying to figure out their formula. They're trying to figure out how to fill their funnel and their leads. So I'm empathetic. Someone just friended me on Facebook. I was like, this looks like an interesting person. We have mutual friends. And then within the half hour that I friended him, he tagged me on a post with 36 other people. And I messaged him. I'm like, it's nice to meet you. You seem interesting. But I'd appreciate if you don't just spam tag me in posts. And he was like, okay, that's cool. Tell me about you. And so we actually had a real conversation. But awesome. I think that's important. But at the same time, I think one of the things that's great about the AI type of methodology here is everyone has like any big business has a sales team. Right. And why do you have a sales team? You want to have someone that does your outreach, warms people up so that you can close. Yep. And I think of AI as serving as kind of like a salesperson at scale so that you can close. And, I don't have all the answers, but I can tell you that I'm studying it, learning it, and focusing on how I can implement that the right way. Because once you figure that out, you could start to really seriously move your income.
Yeah, and also move the impact you're making, which I think is really important. So I completely agree, and I think that I'm an early adopter of technology. Much as I kind of cringe and kind of worry about it, I was the first kid on my block at 11 years old to have a computer, and this is back. I'm a bit older than you, I'm assuming. So this is way back when there were no home computers. So I've always been that early adopter, the person who has all the stuff. I've got my Remarkable that I use. I've got every single piece of technology there is out there, and I think AI is absolutely phenomenal in terms of what it can do. This afternoon, I got it ChatGPT, which I know is not AI, but it's part of it. I just wanted to launch I just finished a series this morning around business growth, like an in-person workshop, and I wanted to get the next one set up immediately. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to ask it to tell me what I should call the next title and what kind of topics we should do what we should write on our copy. And within literally 2 seconds, it was done. And now I just go, flick it off to the VA and kind of go, please make up the next website, please make this all happen. This is what we're talking about. Just do it. And I mean, that stuff is phenomenal. And that ChatGPT is just the very, very tip of the iceberg. There is so much that AI can do.
Yeah. It's amazing. And I'm with you there. I love technology, but I also have some serious fears. I'll give you another example of a serious fear is deep fake technology. Deep fake meaning you're able to put someone's face on someone else's body.
Yeah.
Right. If you saw the new Indiana Jones movie, they kind of like deep faked Harrison Ford onto the main character there. Well, there is on one level, I think it's really cool in that example. Or there's this Instagram of like a fake Keanu Reeves where they just deep fake Keanu Reeves' face onto people doing, just kind of like very mundane things like making eggs or something. Right. Funny. Cool. It's pretty funny. But there's a really dark side to the deep fakes. There is a very famous Twitch streamer whose name escapes me right now, but she rubbed someone the wrong way. And what this person did was they took her face as a deep fake and put it into pornography. She was devastated because she didn't sign up for that. She never consented to having her face distributed in pornography all over the internet. And you know what's going to happen is because this stuff is not difficult to make, as this becomes more and more easy to make, yours going to be, I have a 7-year-old daughter. She's going to walk into school one day, knock on wood, and she'll have gotten to a fight with the wrong set of girls or broken up with the wrong guy. And then everyone is going to be laughing at her in her face because everybody watched the video of her doing the thing with that person or that animal or that whatever, however twisted your mind can get.
Yes, I can imagine.
And you're going to need, our youth. And this is, I think, the most important thing that I pinpoint with my kids. You're going to need to be strong in here, in your heart, because the amount of abuse that our young people are going to take externally in this world where everyone on Instagram is a perfect 100% perfect specimen of a human being, perfect face, perfect body, tons of likes on everything, and you're just you, they're going to be devastated. And then the deepfakes take it to the next level. So I really tried to emphasize with my children, it's got to come from inside, in words of affirmation, exercise, surrounding yourself with the right people. That's what we try to stress. That's the type of thing that terrifies me is how it's going to impact my children.
Yeah. But the reality is, it is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. And so we have to actually look and go, okay, how do we minimize those kind of risks and what can we do to make the most of it? And I know that it certainly is changing the way that podcasts are being done. And I think there was a piece of software that I just tried out the other day. And, I think I uploaded a podcast to it. It immediately took snippets from the podcast. It gave it a title. It put all the words underneath it. It even prepared an email to send out to the people that are on my database about the latest podcast and a whole bunch of other stuff that I actually didn't get into because I don't get involved in that. This actually goes to somebody else to do all that stuff too, so I don't know who does it or how it gets done. But I just wanted to try it because I love trying new things. And that's a game changer in terms of being able to do things that quickly. I just completed an entire copy for a website in 2 seconds flat. In one press a button, I can launch all this stuff. But what are the pros and what are the cons of that?
As you've alluded to, there are many, and we haven't even begun to scrape the surface. This is something that, being in the United States, we're in the middle of this kind of like heated presidential election, and there's a lot of topics that are being talked about, the border, education, the economy, all this stuff. I have not heard one person talk about AI and the threat to not only our social well-being, but, you could start to look at the future of warfare. We're all kind of worried about nuclear bombs. What about AI just running rampant within all of your IT systems, right? Or drone swarms of millions of AI robot-powered drones bombing your city. Anyway, we don't need to go that route.
For that. Yeah, please let's not go down that route.
But I just don't understand how no one has even talked about it. It's the World Economic Forum has estimated 80 million jobs displaced within the next several years. Walmart planning to automate 63% of their stores within 2 years. And we're not talking about this. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. It feels like our priorities are maybe off on how monumentally transformative AI is to every way, shape, and form of life. It's kind of shocking.
But I think it has huge potential because, as I said to you before we got on the podcast, I think that if we can actually, we talk about delegating and elevating to your unique ability or God-given talent, right? And so what do you really love and you're really, really good at? A lot of the stuff that AI does is certainly not stuff that I love or I'm necessarily good at. So I'm really happy to be able to give that stuff over to free myself up to do the stuff that I think AI probably can never do. So facilitation of leadership teams, I can't imagine, I could be wrong, but I can't imagine how AI is going to come in and do that kind of role. But that's something I love and I'm really good at. So if we can use it in a positive way to eliminate the mundane stuff, hopefully, my hope at least, is that everybody on this planet gets to do stuff that they actually really love and are really great at.
100%. And like we talked about in the beginning, it's going to help us eliminate all that boring stuff, right? We just need to find a way to make sure that people are motivated to actually keep up and learn. And we talk about Walmart, retail cashier is the number one job position in the United States. Well, what happens when all those go by the wayside? What do you do now? What are the number one jobs? What are the new skills you can be learning? So anyway, I think it's relevant. And, AI AI is so fascinating. I talked about some of the scary stuff, but what about how it can just take in trillions and trillions of data points, put them all together and solve problems? There's a lot of talk about the climate changing and heating and cooling and all that. Complicated, very complicated. Like one small beetle dying could mean an entire forest goes down because it can't eat the parasite that infects the trees, right? Well, what AI can do is it could take in all that data and kind of process it in a way that just isn't possible for humans. So I think there is the possibility for a lot of good.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Okay, so gosh, AI, that's a topic we could go on forever. I want to talk a bit about podcasts because that's obviously your expertise, and we've talked about the fact that you've built a business around it. I'm feeling awfully embarrassed at the moment being in my home environment doing this podcast because I have a beautiful podcast studio in my office that has got all of the soundproofing and the best microphones and a beautiful DSLR camera and lighting and everything. But to be honest, part of being an entrepreneur for me is that sometimes I just don't want to go into my office. And today I was out doing a workshop and I thought, I don't want to go back in the office. So I've come home. But I'm here. I think hopefully the quality's not too bad. We've got a few cats and dogs that are making it a bit more interesting. What's the biggest mistake people make when they decide to launch a podcast?
I think the biggest mistake is waiting for the perfect conditions. Just like I gave this example at the beginning, I spent so long coming up with the perfect name, Actidad. That was the name. My website was perfect. My show was perfect. My show art was perfect. I paid for the logo. Everything was perfect, except I couldn't rank it on a ham sandwich. It was just never going to rank. People couldn't find the show. And so I think that a lot of times we're just waiting for everything to be perfect. Well, once I have more time, then I'll do it. I had a friend a few years ago that he saw what I was doing. He's like, wow, that looks really cool. I would love to have a YouTube channel. Oh, man, I would just love to have this YouTube channel. So that's great. What would your channel be about? You've got a phone. You can have a YouTube channel. You got a phone. And he's like, oh, it would be about the outdoors. I love the outdoors. He's from South Africa. I love, talking about the outdoors and whatnot. I was like, cool. Go start your outdoor YouTube channel. He's like, well, I need to get a kayak first. Once I get my kayak, then I could start my YouTube channel. That's when I'll start it. Spoiler alert, he still doesn't have that YouTube channel.
No. I call it the hamster wheel. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've got hamsters in the US, but we used to have them in the UK. And we used to put them inside these little plastic balls that were clear and they would basically run around and, they just run around and round and round and round and round. And it's like in life, the hamster wheel is like, when I get this, when I have that, when I do this, when it's like you just everything just becomes, once you've got that, you're waiting for the next thing. Like, why can't we just get on with it right now and be grateful right now for what we've got?
Yeah, it's a human condition, I think, to say, well, tomorrow. And sometimes the answer is not now, sometimes. But I think when it comes to podcasting, the best thing to do is just start or, work with someone like myself who can make sure that you get off to the best start. But the biggest mistake people make is waiting for perfect. It just never comes.
Hey, look, when I first started my podcast about 2.5 years ago, I mean, I literally went out and bought, and I'm talking about New Zealand dollars here. So this is like, I don't know, really, really tiny compared to the American dollar. I went out and I bought like $50 microphones on stands I could put into a room, and I just invited my friends. And I'm very, very, very fortunate and grateful to have some amazing entrepreneurial friends who've done some big things over here in New Zealand. And I just invited them in for a chat. And I just thought it'd be fun to have a chat to them. And I did it for about a year, and I got to the year and I was doing it every single week, and I was really enjoying it, but I kept looking at the numbers and I was like, why am I really bothering doing this? And I came this close to kind of giving it up because I thought, I just can't see how this is ever going to really have the impact that I want. And then it was, so I was this close to giving up, and then I suddenly actually had somebody give me some feedback, and they said, I love listening to your podcast. I've got so much benefit. I've listened to it. And I thought, hey, if I can actually just affect one person, that's kind of cool. And I enjoy doing them, so I'm going to carry on doing them. And so then I upgraded my equipment sort of slowly and surely. I just kept on going and kept on going. And it really wasn't until about the 2-year mark that I finally got more listeners, and it started to actually grow on a consistent kind of way. And then just about, must be about 2 months ago, I was in an airport in Melbourne, different country, Australia, and somebody ran up to me and they go, are you Debra? And I said, yeah, do I know you? I think, oh gosh, I've forgotten who it is. It's a client of mine. I haven't got this wrong. And she said, I've been listening to your podcast and I just love it. And I thought, oh, that's it. I'm never giving up my podcast now. So, whether it may not be reaching the millions of people, but it's certainly thousands, and people are getting value from it. So, yeah.
That is the best when someone you've never met before just taps you on the shoulder. Same thing happened to me at a conference a few weeks ago. I was having a conversation. Gentleman walks over, Abraham, taps me on the shoulder. Says, are you Mark? I love your podcast. I was like, dude, that's so good to me. Yeah, it's the best. It's the best. That 100% keeps me going. Yeah, more of that.
Yeah. So, but I do wonder, because there was that point when I was very, very close to giving up. Do you have any clue how many podcasts actually continue on into the long term? Because I think I'm up to episode 170 or something. How many people give up too early, too soon?
Well, there's different data points. The vast majority, I would say 90%, are quitting before the 7th episode.
Wow.
And so while there are millions, I think the last number I saw was something like 3.5 million podcasts are out there, but the vast majority are they're not active. So again, you have to forgive me. The exact data is not clear. Somewhere around 300 to 400,000 active, regularly produced podcasts are in syndication based on the last numbers I've seen. Right. But, you don't need to, I think sometimes it's not just about how many people are downloading your episode, right? Because the way I see it is the podcast is the engine for your entire digital presence. It's your networking, it's sales, it's lead gen, it's access to people you might not normally have access to. Yeah. Presidential candidates, celebrities, like you don't get access to these people unless you have some sort of media or platform. But it's not just that. It's now I have all the social media content I need. Now I have now I have the gasoline for my blog on my website. Now I have YouTube. Wow, this is helping my website rank. This is giving me SEO. Now it's so that just by recording with an interesting person for 30 minutes a week, now you've all of a sudden built out your entire digital media presence. So quite frankly, even if you have a podcast that's only getting 0 downloads, it's still a valuable asset because of all the other intrinsic things that come as a result from it. But spoiler alert, you're going to get more than 1 downloads because you're interesting. You stick with it. Yeah.
Actually, that is really interesting because that does require some work and some strategy to kind of build that. I completely agree with you. It absolutely gives you the assets for a whole lot of other stuff as well. But is that what you do when you're working with clients, is to make sure they fully maximize the impact that podcast recording can actually do?
That's my bread and butter. I help business owners launch and automate their podcast. So we put together a strategy. Within 6 to 9 weeks, your show is live on YouTube. It's live on iTunes. We launch with lots of clips, those, whatever's highest performing at the time. Typically it's vertical short form. We try different sorts of carousels and graphics. And yeah, we just turned that. If you can record a 30-minute Zoom call, you can have a massive digital presence. And that's what we focus on at my agency.
So now there's a question I was going to ask you. I think you've kind of already answered it. So you keep talking about 30 minutes. Is that the ideal amount of time? Because I originally sort of said I wanted mine to be 20 minutes so you could actually have it, listen to it in the car. But sometimes I just really enjoy talking to my guests. So it's like, okay, we're going to talk for more than 20 minutes. But what is the optimal amount? Is there a special number of minutes that is,
So
right?
It depends. So the short answer is it depends. It depends on your goals. I think it's best to experiment with different lengths. And it depends on your audience. For example, I speak to entrepreneurs, to business owners. A lot of entrepreneurs don't just have 3 hours to listen to a Rogan style podcast, but if you can give them 15 minutes of like really condensed, really useful information, it's a much easier sell. It's a much easier way of getting people in. So I tend to vary anywhere between 10 minutes. I do like 10-minute solo episodes. I do my monthly income report. I train and kind of talk about how I'm using AI. So I try to be a fully open book. But I'll range anywhere from 10 minutes to 2.5 hours. So, to answer your question, Deborah, there's no one right way to do it.
Right answer. Yep.
It
But
kind
I
of
do like what
depends
you
on your
just said
goals.
there. I think you've just said that, that it's not just about, so most of mine are interviewing people because I just really enjoy that. But I do also do some solo episodes. I do also repurpose other talks and things that I've done and actually bring them onto podcasts as well. And it is fascinating. Like you start watching what people actually do download or listen to. It is really interesting to see what appeals to them. The stuff that I sometimes think is the most boring to me because it's me talking about my shit and I kind of go, why would anyone listen to that? And then people really like it. So it's like, okay, well, maybe I can do a bit more of that. Moving away from podcasts for a minute, what's been your biggest challenge in growing your own business? So going from, being an employee to being what would probably originally be a solo entrepreneur with a few contractors to now actually having a business. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
I would say the biggest challenge in building my business has been, I hate to say this, but isolation in a way, I think, because, my wife is awesome, very supportive, but she doesn't understand the challenges that I'm going through and landed this client, this tech broke down, lost this client, this team member fell off. There's an emergency in the Philippines, all these different things that happen. So, I can't really, she doesn't really fully understand that. And then I go to my friends and, my friends they're playing video games or they're drinking. They're very content with where they're at. They don't really see the world the way that I do. And so I really felt like there was a sense of isolation that it's just me. And even though we live in this world where everyone's connected on your smartphone,
Not really.
it doesn't really feel connecting, and so it's kind of funny. I was at a conference a few weeks ago and we were doing this workshop on identifying your opportunities and your leaks, right? Where are the leaks in my business? Where are the opportunities? And I recognize that I have a huge leak. I don't have an inner circle. I don't have a tight knit group of people that are all invested in my success. And so leaving that event, I spoke to so I run a mastermind, the After Hours Entrepreneur mastermind group. And we had about, 25, 30 members in there. And I said, hey, I want to do something that's more focused. I want to have, you're here every week, once a week for 1 hour. We're going to set goals. We're going to be accountable to each other. And once a week, we're going to have someone who sits in the hot seat and everyone is just going to focus all of their energy, their resources, their network on that person so that person can solve that problem. And honestly, it's been tremendous, not just for me personally kind of experiencing that, and it even though it's in its infant stages, but as I go around and I start talking to other people, other entrepreneurs, everybody feels the same way.
Yep.
I was like, I'm not alone. Everybody has this gap. And so I think that finding your tribe and finding a close-knit group of people that can pour into each other, that I think has been the greatest challenge. And I'm 5 years into being, to doing this. I'm finally coming to that realization. I can't do it alone. Frankly, I don't want to. It's harder.
No, and I agree, and I think that's why things like entrepreneurs organization, EO entrepreneurs organization, your Vistage groups, your mastermind groups, all those things actually give you the access to people who are going through similar experiences to you, and you find people that you can actually open up to about things that, as you said. I mean, my husband's an actuary; he works for an insurance company. He knows nothing about running a business, and I remember losing a client a few months ago, and they booked in 2 days, and I get paid by the day, so they changed they cancelled the 2 days like a week out, and it was devastating from a financial perspective, from a why do they not want to work with me perspective, all that stuff, and he doesn't get it, and he was just really annoyed that we'd lost the income. And it's like, I had more than that going on, because I was going, well, these are one of my best clients, and why did they do that, and am I not doing my job well, and all that stuff that goes on. And so by having one of those groups, you can have those conversations, I think it's absolutely invaluable.
Yeah. And to that point, which, by the way, shout out to Entrepreneurs Organization. I'm going to be hosting a podcast booth in Tampa in October. So maybe I'll see you there. Yep. But I think what's even more so important than finding like a big tribe is because I've had that before, but I think it's having a tight knit of people that I trust and they trust me, and we're the iron sharpens iron. That I think has been the big thing that I've been missing is I want 10 to 12 people that are all really focused on each other's success. So
maybe it's not the same in America, but certainly over here, EO has their forums. They've got their big learning days, and it's a big organization. They have their forums that basically have 6 to 8 people in them. You all come from a different industry, so therefore you can really frankly and openly share everything that's going on, and that's where you get that. So I remember in my forum, I had 6 guys and myself, and they're like my big brothers. Like they were there for me no matter what was going on. I could talk to them about everything, anything, and vice versa. You're right. It's what we need, because sometimes it can be tough, right?
Very tough. And, we talked earlier about you only have enough room for 140 relationships at most. Mm-hmm. And if you're not, I audit the people that I spend time with much more closely now than I used to. Yeah. I'm very intentional. You have to be able to say no. You just have to be able to say no. Yeah, I don't know how else to say it. I was invited to join a kickball group recently, and all these people, they seem like fun people. They're drinking beer, they're playing beer pong, and they're hanging. They're fun. I'm like, I'm meant for more than this. I'm meant for greatness. I have that vision. I have that premium, state-of-the-art podcast studio in Fort Lauderdale, 5 minutes from the beach, 5 minutes from the airport. Celebrities, A-list entrepreneurs, pro athletes, politicians are flying in just to see. That's the vision.
Yep.
And there's no way I'm ever going to get there unless the people that I'm surrounding myself with are facilitating that vision. And I can see it, Debra. I could see it so vividly. And
I can't wait till I come to that studio and do a session with you.
Oh, it's going to be awesome. There's going to be, we're going to have a full audience, and there's going to be, a bar and a cigar lounge, and I don't drink, but it's going to be amazing. And I'm, yeah. And if you have a big vision, you need to be with the people that
support that.
Yes.
Cool. Right. Okay. So let's get to the meaty stuff. Let's get to so your 3 top tips. You've already given lots and lots of value so far around the things that are important. But if you had to give 3 things that you've learned on your journey that you really think would be helpful, so it could be top tips, tools, books, whatever it might be. What are the 3 things you would share with the listeners?
Okay. So I give top 3 books that changed my life would be 4-Hour Workweek, Tim Ferriss. Really important book about outsourcing and scaling up your time. Atomic Habits. Really loved Atomic Habits. That was a great book. James Clear. Amazing. You need to have the right habits in place. That book is great. $100 Million Leads. Alex Hormozy. Awesome book.
Yeah.
Story Brand. Donald Miller. Awesome book. Great book. Yep. I'm just Starting Unnecessary Endings Now. This is a great book. Predictable Success, great book. Just read that one. I have Think and Grow Rich over here that's actually going to be in our book club for October. My book club is going to be reading that book. So I think, rich people read, poor people scroll.
Yeah, perfect. Yep.
So that's one. Two, you need to be using AI now.
Yep.
You just need to be using AI. I don't know where it's going or the exact ways that it's going to work for your specific business, but you need to be using AI now. It's going to change your industry dramatically, and you want to be first in line. And you also want to be vocal about using AI, because then you're positioning yourself as a forward thinker.
Yeah. I think I mentioned to you before we came on the podcast, I was one of the first kids to ever have a home computer, and that was when I was 11 years old, and I'm 53, so there weren't home computers back in those days. And I tell you what, I taught myself to program. I kind of taught myself to get very comfortable. What I learned more than anything was adopting it really early meant I never had a fear of computers, never. Like I would just hop on any computer and I'll just give it a go, and I know that everything can be undone within limits, and you just need to give it a go. And I think that's the same with AI. I think we need to jump on board, learn as we go, and just get comfortable with it, because it's going to be here forever. It's going to change all the time, and if you're not comfortable with it, that's when you're going to have the challenges, right?
100%. If you don't know where to start, just use ChatGPT for 15 minutes a day, 10, 15 minutes a day. If you don't know where to start, just start there. It's very simple to use. If you're not using AI, it's going to be like it's like you're in a race, you're on roller skates and the other person's in a Ferrari. You will not win that race. So you need to be experimenting with AI now.
Cool. Yep. Okay. And the third and final?
Third. There's so many lessons. I think for me, and I've mentioned this a couple times, is having a clear vision of where you want to go. And what you want to accomplish, I think, is important, because without a clear vision, it's very difficult to determine next steps. It's oftentimes, when you show up to a 9-to-5 job, it's not complicated. You do what your boss tells you. When you are the boss, it's very complicated. You don't know the right move, the right price, the right branding, the right client, the right salesperson. There's lots of sides. So having a clear vision of where you want to go will help illuminate the path for you.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. And I think it was Alice in Wonderland, where basically I think it might have been the grinning cat in the tree asked Alice where she was headed, and because she didn't know, that was like, well, any road will get you there. If you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And so it is important. If you know where you're going, then you can get the map to get there. Cool. Wow, that has been amazing to chat with you and explore some of these things, and it's really helped me think about some of the things that I've been struggling with as well, so thank you so much. In terms of the podcast stuff, tell us what your ideal client is. Tell us, what do you do for these people, and how will they actually find you?
You can find me at marksavantmedia.com. Mm-hmm. We are a good fit if you're a forward thinker, if you're a business owner, if you have a marketing budget and you're trying to find a way to really explode your media presence. I've got great options to help you launch and automate a podcast. That's what I do. And then again, book club, you can put a link below. I've got a book club. We're reading books, baby. We're reading books. This month we're doing Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, all-time bestseller. And if you want to surround yourself with the right people, read books, we'd love to have you.
Oh, that's fantastic. So the website, just repeat that again for me.
marksavantmedia.com. marksavantmedia.com. Just like my name with media, marksavantmedia.com.
I thought it was Sir Mark Savant, the great media.com.
That's just to the king and the queen, and that's what they call me. But
Brilliant. Hey, look, Mark, I've really, really enjoyed our talk, both online and offline. It's been brilliant. So thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. Look forward to seeing you in your studio when it is all ready.
Oh yeah, it's going to be amazing. I can't wait to see you there.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Debra.
Thanks for listening to the podcast show, Better Business, Better Life. My name is Debra Chantry-Taylor. I'm an EOS implementer, family business advisor, business and leadership coach, podcaster, and speaker. However, I'm also a business owner with several current business interests. I'm fortunate to have lived the high life with all the lifestyle, the toys, you name it, and then I've lost it all, not only once, but twice in 2 spectacular train wrecks. I know what it's like to experience the highs and lows. I came across EOS when they launched into New Zealand using my Entrepreneurs Playground and Event Centre in Parnell, Auckland. I love the simplicity of the tools, and their philosophies fitted my personal brand statement perfectly. The brilliance is in the simplicity. I've always been passionate about seeing entrepreneurs lead a life they love, and now I help them live that EOS life. Doing what they love, with people they love, making a huge difference in the world, being compensated appropriately, and with time to pursue other passions. If you want more information or want to get in contact about using EOS in your business, you can visit my website at debra.coach. That's www.debra.coach. Thanks for listening.